Good evening and welcome to another episode of Black Authors Matter TV. We're excited that you're joining us this evening, and there's so many exciting things coming up. It's just hard to keep them all straight, but I am excited about the next several months and what's going to be happening. I'm Gwen Richardson. I'm your host for tonight, along with my co-host,
Dr. Rhonda Lawson. Good evening, everybody.
And we have another amazing lineup again, as we always do. But before we bring on our guests, I wanted to let you all know and remind you all that the voting for the 2022 Black Authors Matter TV Awards started at 12:01 this morning a.m. So if you didn't already vote, go to blackauthors.mattertv.com. On the top left, there's a link that says cast your vote for the awards. And we're excited.
And I've already seen people campaigning. They are
I had too. On Facebook, they've been posting their messages telling everybody to vote for them. That's great. That's how you make the first cut anyway as a finalist, is to ask people to vote for you. And you'd be amazed. If you ask people to vote, they will vote. People want to support people that they know, and they're happy, and it doesn't cost them a thing. The only thing is you can only vote on one IP address per day, so you can vote every day from now till March 31st for your favorites.
So, and don't cheat. Let's make this real.
Right. Well, for those who might try to cheat, believe it or not, we have a fail-safe and we are watching. So we learned that last year. A few people thought they could game the system. No, we are on it. So if you try to cheat, what you'll do is be disqualified, and you won't even know you were disqualified because we don't make a public announcement, but we are watching. Some people always try to get around stuff. 99% of everybody did it the right way. So vote for your favorites. And then we'll announce the finalists on April 5th on the April 5th show. So we're excited about that. And the National Black Book Festival registration is open for authors. The event will be in person October 20th through the 22nd in Houston. And we're very excited about being in person after 2 years. So we would love to see everybody there who's planning to come. Go to nationalblackbookfestival.com to register as an author. And the Jerry Pinkney Children's Book Awards, those submissions are open and will be open until June 6th. So feel free, if you have a children's book or you know someone that has a children's book, go to jerrypinkneybookawards.com. All the information is there. And we'll be giving away that award at the festival. But the Black Authors Matter TV Awards, that show is on May 17th. And we've already got sponsors to support the show. It's going to be amazing this year. We're excited. So anyway, that's enough for me. Rhonda, do you have anything to add before we bring on our first guest?
Well, yes. First of all, I want to thank everybody who joined me for my masterclass on Saturday. It was a great time. There was a lot of information shared. If you did not have a chance to see it, you can go to the Meet the World Image Solutions Facebook page. I do have a replay of the video on the page. And I'm also excited about a new Renaissance. It's doing very well. I thank everybody who supported it. Thank you to the authors who I met on this show who participated in the book, because it was awesome. And we have so much going on. I could take up the whole hour. So just go to the Meet the World Image Solutions Facebook page and check out what we have going on, because we have a really exciting event happening on March 30th, and I'd love you to be a part of it.
Okay. Well, yeah, we have lots going on. If you want to be in the know and at the pulse of everything that's going on from a literature standpoint, you need to be watching this show every week. Oh, and we're a podcast. I had mentioned that we're on 6 podcast platforms. So the whole show every week is on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, iHeartRadio, and Stitcher. So you can listen to it in your car, whatever, or you can visit our YouTube channel, Black Authors Matter TV. Okay, that's it for the opening remarks. And we are going to be giving away a book, but I'll wait until after the first interview to do that, to tell you what it is and to do that. So tonight, our first guest is Femi Yuba. He is a playwright and he's Nigerian, but he was trained in theater in London. So he's going to talk. He has a memoir he's going to tell us about. We have Connie Briscoe, who's a award-winning best-selling author, and I think she has a new book coming out soon in the next year or so. She's our second guest. Our third guest is Rose M Stefan, PhD, and she has several novels that she wants to talk about, as well as some services she offers to read people's novels. Because a lot of times you need a beta reader or you need a editor to read your work. She's going to talk about that. And our final guest is Dr. Georgia McDade. She is with the Seattle African American Writers Alliance.
Nice.
So she's going to be joining us from Seattle, Washington. And so our first guest is Femi Yuba, and he's going to tell us about his book, his memoir called Experiencing WS, The Making of an Artist Scholar. So, Femi, welcome to Black Authors Matter TV. Let's see.
You have to unmute.
Okay.
All right.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome to Black Authors Matter TV. We're very excited about having you.
Thank you. I'm glad to see you too.
Okay. So you had mentioned that you're Nigerian, but you're a US citizen, and you were trained as an actor in England, and you're on the London professional stage. So just tell us about your journey from Nigeria to America, or well, by way of London, or however you traverse to get where you are now.
Oh, okay. Well, I high schooled in Nigeria. I was born in Lagos, this capital city of Nigeria.
Okay.
And I high schooled there, and then after my high school, I went to England to study acting in one of the, at the time, the best conservatory in England, called the Rosa College of Speech and Drama.
Oh, wow.
And
did you know about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, my daughter was actually contacted by Rose Buford to to attend there for graduate school. I'm gonna have to tell her they're well known.
Yeah, actually, it's changed a lot now. They're now doing degree courses and all that, and it's attached to the University of Canterbury also. So, but at that time it was still very much a conservatory. And after my 3 years there, I decided to stay in London to do professional theater. But I'm always not really content with just one thing. So 1970, I decided to go to Yale.
Wow. That's another good school.
Yale School of Drama.
Yes.
To do playwriting. And then after that, I went back to Nigeria. Well, after that, actually, I did do a stint at one of the high schools for women in Sidcup, Connecticut. No, sorry, I'm talking about England. Came to England, study theater, Yale School of Drama, and then after that, I went to the Walker School, prep school for women, for 2 years, teaching mime and drama. I directed 2 plays there. Then after that, I went to Nigeria, back to Nigeria, and taught at the University of Ife for about 11 years. But within that time, I always came back to the US for one reason or the other. But then I wasn't content. I was looking forward to doing something more academic. So I went back to Yale to do African American Studies. And after that, decided to continue with my PhD. which I got, about 3 years later. So then I went back to Nigeria for 2 years, but because of the political rumblings there, I decided to move here. Fortunately, my friend Henry Louis Gates Jr. Helped me get a connection with first of all William and Mary in Virginia.
Okay.
And then within that, LSU offered me a job, and I've stayed at LSU for those years. But I've continued to direct and write all along the way. Actually, my writing began with the BBC when I was still acting, writing radio plays for them. I wrote about 10 or so plays for them at the time, and it was because of that Yale accepted me to do playwriting. So
wow.
it's a long stretch, So the memoir is really an overview of my experiences as a theater practitioner, acting, directing, playwriting, and then a scholar.
Wow, it sounds like the common denominator is that you have never been content with one thing. You're always striving for something a little more.
I wanted to get it all,
Yes.
if I could, in my profession, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Well, I don't in the last chapter of my memoir, I was looking at what would have happened if I'd stayed in England or if I stayed in Nigeria, and then I came to the conclusion that maybe America is just the best place for me, to have stayed,
Do you still? You go ahead, Gwen. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to know what, when you were in Nigeria, what led you to go to study to be an actor? Were you acting in Nigeria? Were you?
Yeah.
What was your motivation? What inspired you?
Actually, the person that really got me to write this memoir actually was my artistic relationship with my mentor, Wole Soyinka, the Nobel laureate, 1986 Nobel laureate. He was the one that introduced me to theater. When I was in Nigeria, we did some acting. In fact, we did his first major play, A Dance of the Forest in Nigeria. And then we did 2 plays more before I decided to go and study, in England. But then he also trained me really as a researcher, because I was a kind of assistant to him in his research into African drama. I toured with him for the first time in my life. I toured with him across Nigeria. As I said, we did the 2 plays or 3, and then I came to study in London. But I had been communicating actually with Rose Bruford while I was in Nigeria through the British Council. So it was easy for me when I go there to reconnect with them and then go there. I spent about 1 year at a polytechnic.
Okay.
At that time, my ambition was to actually go straight to a university that accommodates acting and academic, like Bristol University. But then I got scholarship to do acting. I jumped at that and went to Rose Bruford instead, and held off my academic until later.
Are you still acting?
Oh no, well, my last acting again with my mentor was 2002, when he was commissioned to do an adaptation of Oedipus Colonos in Greece. So we rehearsed in Las Vegas and we took it to Greece for a conference there. Well, that was my last time. I've always wanted to. Well, LSU didn't use me well actually, because on 2 occasions I would have acted in 1 or 2 plays, but it didn't come about.
Mm.
So
At that time, sorry.
well, when did you start with the playwriting? Actually writing the plays.
Writing the play.
What took you in that direction after acting?
Yeah, as I said, well, actually, I first began with writing short stories when I was in Nigeria. Before I left high school, I was writing short stories, and then my mentor introduced me to radio when I acted a few parts, in their radio plays, in Nigeria. But when I got to London, and I realized that BBC African Service really wanted plays, I decided to venture in that direction.
Okay.
So I wrote about 30-minute play I wrote one day at some point. So that was how I got into writing plays, really. And it was so effortless at the time. I could knock out a radio play in about 2 days. A thing I couldn't do now, because I had to think and think and think. But at that time, it was a free willy.
So, first of all, a lot of people may not realize, but going to a play in the West End in London is just like going to a Broadway play here in the United States.
Yes.
Amazing production value. Did you find that you had a bigger appreciation for the art of acting when you were acting on those stages?
Yes. At that time, it was, there are lots of experimental plays at the time. I was for a long time with the Royal Court Theatre, and under a director, Bill Gaskill, who really not only doing play productions, but in fact got us into workshops, every now and then. And I also had the time to travel to Stratford-upon-Avon to watch Shakespeare plays. I was really gravitated towards that kind of writing, really. Till today, I still think that Shakespeare influenced me in a way especially because of his humorous characters that I actually have seen some of them. I had seen some of them in Nigeria, So so I was really writing something that of characters from the Renaissance, theater of Shakespeare, theater of Molière. Those are the influences that got me started in my first place. Those characters, especially the comic ones, there was a time one of the producers said, you write these plays about working class, and they always get away with murder. So I said, well, yeah, I think for me it's interesting that here are the people who are overpowered by the class, by the class system, and they really needed to have their way of toppling, their masters and all that. Things that, in fact, I learned again from Molière.
I think what you're saying is a great into Norman's question. He's one of our regular viewers. He asked if acting changed your perspective of life in Lagos. And I'm hearing you talking, I think you're kind of touching on that, so I wanted to know if you'd like to elaborate on that.
Acting in Lagos?
Right. He said he wanted to know if acting has changed your perspective of life in Lagos.
Well, Nigeria, Lagos, we are full of drama, you know, and I think I really admire people who have really gone to writing plays, to writing film scripts. For instance, there is something called what's the word now? Something hood. It's a Nigerian type of Nollywood.
Oh, yes.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. They are very creative in Nigeria. And I wish I could be there, you know, because there are lots of things one could write about, except that the political life is just awful, you know. I've been wanting to even go back for a few weeks, and I just couldn't get myself to doing that, you know, because it is just not, feasible to do that, you know.
Right.
But to answer the question, yes, you know, I looked at my country. I looked at the artistic things coming out of there, and I really appreciate that. You know that as I said, Nigeria is full of life. It's unfortunate that it's been destroyed politically. You know, especially from where I come. You know, the western part of Nigeria.
Yes.
Very artistic. You know, that's where you find Wole Soyinka, myself, another person called Femi Yuba, who are really, very prolific, writers. In my when I teach drama, African American drama, or African and African American drama, I usually introduce them to much of West African drama that they're not even aware of existing,
Wow.
I don't know whether that
So-
answered your question.
Yeah, your students that take your class, your drama class,
Yes.
what type of student signs up to take the class?
All
Is
sorts.
it is it people who are actors, people who want to write plays, or what?
Oh, no. Well, let's put it this way. I have two classes, one in academic and one in creative,
Okay.
Academic is, I have two classes, three classes actually. One undergraduate, drama of Africa and African American, drama of African and the African diaspora.
Yes.
And then I have playwriting, undergraduate playwriting. And then I have graduate playwriting, and there's a graduate drama of Africa on one side, and then drama of the diaspora on the other. There are lots of people, white and black, that come in. Not necessarily, in fact, I don't know of anybody in the drama seminar courses or academic courses who are really playwrights,
Okay. Well,
But-
I meant more in terms of just where the interests were, not necessarily the ethnicity. Because I figure if you're teaching at Yale, is that where you teach?
Like
No, I teach, LSU, Louisiana.
Oh,
State.
LSU. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
there too, that you're going to have a mixture of students ethnically. But
Yeah.
I just wondered, like the interest level, is the interest high? Are they American students? That's the one thing. Or are they African students? Or are they from all over? Or are they interested in theater, writing, acting, or all of the above?
Yeah. Well, I used to teach acting, but I have left that. I used to teach acting, I used to teach directing, but I've left that to the more junior professors. But in terms of, well, to give an example, I'm teaching right now the undergraduate section of drama of Africa and African diaspora. I have 18 students, which was really unusual for this semester because I usually keep it at 12 or so, but for some reasons, 18, and
Finding out about you, and they want to learn from you.
Yeah, and whites, black, African Americans, Chinese, all sorts, yeah. And then, of course, playwriting. There are people who really wanted to know how to write plays,
Right. Well, unfortunately, we're running out of time, and I will say I would love to introduce my daughter to you. I'm from Louisiana myself. I'm from
Oh, okay.
Yes, but I would love to introduce my daughter to you because she's about to go to grad school. But I did want to, if you can remind us about your book, about your memoirs, how we can find them, and then some of the things that you talk about in the memoirs.
Yeah, here is the memoir.
Okay.
Yeah. As I said, the memoir is an overview of myself as an artist, and a scholar, really, and at first it wasn't something I really wanted to write because I always felt memoir was for older people, and not. But then, as I come to realize, I did so many plays by Shoyinka, and taught Shoyinka's plays, and also directed some. So I thought, well, maybe I should just look at our experiences from when I was a rookie in his company in Nigeria, through the time I went to study abroad. There was a section there where for the first time I wanted really to be interested in drama. I remember dozing off at the corner of my house, and I heard the name Wole Soyinka, who had just returned from England at the time, my ears just opened up, and I told my brother, "Look, you have to get me to, you have to introduce me to him," which he did, and the rest is history because he introduced me. I did some of his workshops. He made me his assistant. We traveled a lot, and then from there to England. But also my experiences, not only as an actor, but as a writer, writing my first scripts, radio plays I discussed there, and then going to my major plays. Within that also my directing, how I got into it, and I was encouraged by many people. Yeah, you saw my production
in the entire acting industry. It sounds like you've had a full trajectory. You've gone from being an actor to a writer to a director. And now you're teaching. So it's a full trajectory.
It's a full trajectory, and that's why I called it, the making of an artist scholar. As an artist practitioner and as a scholar. But there are lots of episodes actually. About 10 episodes, 10, I call them scenes, like chapters,
Okay.
Yeah, and each of them, and they crisscross really, because you can't just tell it straightforward, I think. It covers maybe about 5 decades, really.
Wow. Oh, okay. Wonderful. Yeah. Well, we're at the end of our segment. So hold your book up again so people can see it. And we want people to go and read Experiencing WS by Femi Yuba and learn all about his journey from Lagos, Nigeria to all over Europe and the United States with his playwriting and as a scholar.
And maybe it would help them too to develop, because that's one of the reasons I wrote the book, that
Yes.
somehow reading it would encourage people not to just be discouraged.
Right, to encourage. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on Black Authors Matter TV, and you have a great evening. And,
yeah, you too.
Congratulations on your success.
Thank you. Good to see you, Rhonda. Gwen, yeah, bye-bye.
All right. Well, that was our first guest for tonight. And before we bring on our next guest, Ms. Connie Briscoe, we're going to give away a book tonight. We have a hardcover book.
Ooh, a hardcover.
Yeah, this is
Oh,
called Black Skin.
right, there we go. Ooh.
Black Skin. Can you see it?
Isha Ayodele.
Uh-huh.
Ayodele.
Yeah. Ayodele. And it's about skincare. And it's a very thick book. And see that? It's the definitive skincare guide, and HarperCollins donated this book. So in order to win this book, you have to answer a trivia question as always. And the trivia question on here is, the author, Ms. Ayodele, I guess I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Mhm.
She is founder of what London-based boutique skincare clinic? So she's the founder of a London-based skincare clinic. What is the name of it? If you answer correctly, the first one to answer correctly will get this book. So without further ado, we're going to bring on our next guest, Connie Briscoe. And Connie had a lot of books in the early half of the 2000s. She had, I think it was Brothers and Sisters. I should have looked up her book list, because I read several of them.
Me too.
So we want to find out, and I believe she has something coming up, because I know she was on a deadline, and we want to have her on the show earlier in the year, but she had to wait because she was on a book deadline that she was working on. So there she is. Connie Briscoe, welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Hey, hi.
Hello.
Gwen.
How are you?
Nice to see you. See you all.
Same here. I don't think we've ever met. I don't.
No, but I've certainly seen you around Facebook and in the world, really. I don't have. You have to excuse my background. I'm in a.
Oh, it's no problem. It's your world, wherever it is. So
yeah, this is my loss. Things are in transition, but.
Oh, we'll okay. Well, we're just happy to have you on. Because in our store we used to carry your books, but I don't think we ever had you come for a signing. But I know when we had our Kush City store, our brick and mortar store, we used to carry your books in the store, and your books did very well. Yeah,
I don't seem to be getting. Am I getting an echo?
I don't hear an echo. Do you hear one, Rhonda?
I'm hearing two voices.
Okay, you have a device on. Do you have another device on? If you're hearing an echo, if you have another device with the show on, with the sound on, it will create an echo, because
you know what, I'm using an external microphone because it's better. Let me unhook that and try using the.
That might be it.
Yeah, I've got two voices here. Let me unhook that.
Okay, no problem.
It usually works beautifully, but let's see.
No, well, we're not saying anything right now.
I've never had this problem before.
Well, if it's
this is so weird. I'll try to manage. Do I sound any different?
We can't hear the echo. It's not on our end. So you're fine on our end.
Yeah, it might be.
I'm trying to see if I have anything else on. I don't. Oh. Now I had the Facebook page open. That's what it was. Let me go back to my microphone.
Yeah, that creates an echo.
I forgot I was watching for a few minutes and then forgot to shut it down.
Yeah, there you go.
I thought I was losing my mind.
There we go. Now that we got that straight, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well, doing well. Happy to see the weather changing, the seasons changing, weather getting warm. We had freezing weather over the weekend, and then today was up
Oh,
into the
are you
60s.
still in the DC area?
I'm in Columbia, Maryland, actually.
Okay, see, I
But
live,
not far from DC, halfway
Yeah.
between DC and
I
Baltimore.
live in Silver Spring, so I experienced
Oh, that's
the same
where I grew
thing
up.
that you did. It had the nerve to snow here over the weekend
Oh, it did?
and snowed most of the day.
Oh,
Yeah, it
boy.
did. We didn't get much accumulation, but
No.
we went from 70 last week or almost
Right.
80 last weekend to snow, and now we're back at 70.
Yeah, we had in Houston, we had a little bit of a cold snap. Cold for us is like high 30s at night. That's cold, but it's over with now, so we won't have any cold. It's going to be on the way up. So it was
Where are
70.
you, Gwen? Where are you, Gwen?
I'm in Houston.
Oh, okay. I thought you had
Yeah.
hot, warm weather there all the time.
Yeah, no,
It's
no,
changing now.
we have a winter, but it's very mild. We don't get
Okay.
snow. We
Oh.
had the deep freeze last year, and that was
I
like a
remember that.
100-year event.
Mhm.
It was a 100-year event. And it was unprecedented in this in the last century. But we didn't have anything, it was extremely rare.
Okay.
And we have mild winters. Blistering summers though. You have to have AC everywhere. And
Oh, so do we in DC. Yes, because it gets
Yeah,
so
I'm hot
humid here.
now.
You're hot now. I've got my fan going. I don't know if you can hear it. Because I'm up in the loft area,
Yeah, well, I must say that I'm really excited to have you on the show because just like Gwen, we've been reading your books for a long time. I remember reading Sisters and Lovers, and what struck me is I went over your book list, your titles, before we went on the show, and I realized that you write, even though you're writing fiction, you write with an air of realism, and you, for instance, you like to put a lot of your stories in PG County.
Yeah.
You kind of base some stories on your life, like with A Long Way From Home. Why do you choose to draw from basically realism to write your fiction?
So yeah, I think you're saying that I draw from different aspects of my life. I think most authors do that, but maybe I do it a little bit more than most. As you said, A Long Way From Home actually is historical fiction based on my mother's side of the family. And a lot of that is based on stories I was told by my grandmother and my great aunts and my mother. So there's definitely a lot of, probably more realism in that than any of the others because I was basing it on fact. The others are pretty much fiction. I do take snippets from my life and from the lives of friends when I'm writing, for example, in Sisters and Lovers. At that time, I was still single, and most of my girlfriends were single. And so I decided I wanted to write a novel about the single life when you're, in your 40s, or 30s or 40s and single and searching for Mr. Right, which a lot of my friends were doing at the time. I don't actually take any of my personal life and put it onto the pages, but I am inspired by the things going on in my life and in my friends' lives. In PG County, that was actually based on when I was living in the county. I'm not there now, but when I was living in the county, things that would happen when I was in the county. And I picked PG County because I think it's sort of kind of stands out in
Yes.
terms of Black American communities in that we have everything from all walks of life, but it has a very vibrant middle and upper middle class sector in Prince George's County. And I actually got the idea for it when I was at a party. I was not thinking about writing about Prince George's County. I was trying to think of what my next novel would be. And I was at a wedding, like depicted very much like the first scene in the novel. I was at a very nice wedding out on the lawn with tents and, butlers holding trays with drinks. And it was a beautiful wedding. And right in the middle of the wedding, the mistress the wedding was held on the estate in the Woodmore community. I didn't put Woodmore in the book, but it was something named similarly. But during the wedding, the mistress of the father of the groom drove up well, just before the wedding, drove up and was upset because she hadn't been invited to the wedding. So when I heard about that, I was at the wedding, and that's what everybody was gossiping about. Did you hear that? She came up and drove her car up on.
That happened in real life?
It happened.
Wow.
Everybody was talking about it all through the wedding. A very nice wedding, but they were talking about this incident. So I said to my husband, I think I have the setting for my next novel. And the first scene, the opening chapter. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that,
yeah, it is spaced a lot. And maybe that realism enters the pages of the books because I am basing it on things that happened to me.
well, truth is stranger than fiction. So, I mean, that's a saying that is true.
True.
I mean,
Very
you can
true.
take some truth and really turn it into a novel easily.
Yeah.
Because
I
so
couldn't
many
think of
bizarre
half of
things,
the things that happen in real life, you know.
so many
And
bizarre
that's basically what writing fiction is. For me,
Mhm.
you take those things that happen in real life and then you imagine what if this happened or what if that happened. You use that as a starting point.
Right. That's true.
I like doing that sometimes. Sometimes I'll think back on a situation. I'm like, you know what? I should have said such and such. And then I'm like, I'm gonna write about it. I am going to say such and such.
Yeah. And then you look at your character to say what you would have said. That you have the words in someone else's mouth. So
Right.
that's one thing you can do in a novel. Now, are you working? Do you have something coming out in the?
Yes, I didn't bring any of my books because quite frankly, most of them are pretty old, although some of them are still selling, surprisingly.
That's a wonderful.
But it's been, at least 10 years since my last book came out. I took a break. I needed a break. I took a very much needed break. And as a writer, though, I kind of always knew I would want to come back to writing. And so just over the past few months, over the past year or two, I've been working hard at trying to get a couple of books off the ground, hoping I would get one or the other. And I was lucky enough to get both of them sold to publishers. So I'm working on both a nonfiction book and a fiction book. The nonfiction book is going to be called Stepping Out. And in that book, I'm trying to depict how the style and the fashion of African Americans has influenced the style of America in general.
Nice.
I think that we have sort of an innate natural sense of style, and that's reflected in some of the fashion choices today. There will be sections on hip hop and entertainers and how they influence style. But the main part of the book is I'm working with a wonderful photographer. His name is Milton Washington. And if you can go to his website and see some of his fashion photography and his photography in general, you'll see what I mean. I think his website is Rockmill Studios, ROK, MIL Studios.com. But I'll be working with him. He'll be taking photographs of these stylish people. And then I'll be writing essays based on how style influenced them, how they think our style influences the culture. So that should be very interesting and a big departure from anything I've written. But fashion has always been something that has interested me all my life. So it was very exciting to be able to get that off the ground. And hopefully that will come out by the end of 2023.
Wow.
Okay.
Was that a lot of work to put the research into something like that? Because, fashion is around, but when you really want to dig into it, I'm sure it took a lot of research.
Yeah, I spent probably most of the work was the research. The writing became the easy part for that book because a lot of it was based on research. I did have someone helping me with the research, but the biggest part of the book, I would say, maybe 70 to 80% of what you see in the book will be the photographs because Milton is such an outstanding photographer. I actually wanted the book to be all about photography just to get his work out there. He is a very exciting photographer. He has worked with a few prominent clients, and this will be his opportunity to really get his work out there. My essays will actually be backing up his outstanding photography work. You know how sometimes you see those photography books and there's no information about the
Right.
person in the photograph. Well, I thought that it might make sense to provide at least a little bit of information about the people in the photographs rather than just slapping them on the page. So we will have essays, or short essays about some of the people who are being photographed. But a lot of the photographs, frankly, will speak for themselves. And then there's going to be an introduction section that talks about our influence on style throughout the ages, from the days of slavery to the present time. And as I mentioned, it'll talk about how hip hop has had a huge influence
Yes.
on the culture and fashion, how entertainers have, James Brown and his cape, and how some of the older entertainers have influenced fashion. So that should be interesting. I'm looking forward to that.
It should be an interesting book. I'm looking forward to reading it myself because I love the evolution of fashion, just
Okay, that's exactly
where
what
we've
it
come
is.
from and how we're going back to it. You know, we're going back to wearing bell bottoms. We're going back to wearing crop tops.
It constantly evolves. Young people
It
think they've
does.
invented something, they've come up with something new. No, we did that 50 years
No,
ago. We did that 30.
Pants are one thing, they go in and out. So now the pants are going out again in terms of the wide legs.
Yeah.
Where they were, like, everything was, the skinny jeans and the narrow bottom.
Which wasn't a very flattering style for older people, I'll point out. Some of the low-waisted ones especially, but now they've gone out and the waist has come up. So
Yes.
it's constantly
Yes,
evolving.
so it's constantly evolving, but it does harken back to a previous era, but it's not exactly the same. Like the fabrics may be different, but the styles do sort of come back. Even
Yes.
shoes.
And you will see that especially in some of the older hip hop styles, and how much of how much hip hop has pervaded it, just taken over over society. There are a lot of things that hip hop or a lot of ways that hip hop has influenced style that we don't even realize. And I'll talk, I don't want to get into that now, but I'll talk a lot about that in the book, as well as the fashion of entertainers have worn on stages and how that's influenced us. So that's the nonfiction book. The other thing I want to talk about, surprisingly, the other book that I'm working on is going to be a suspense novel. This will be my first time writing suspense, domestic suspense, or romantic suspense, however you want to label it. And in this one, I'll be, again, some of me, I hadn't thought about that, but some of me, it'll be about a woman in her 30s who's deaf or hearing impaired. She has a cochlear implant and much of her hearing is restored. But then she sort of comes out of this to discover that she's in a bad way with a number of men in her life. She has a very an obsessive ex-boyfriend, a controlling husband, a creepy next door neighbor, and all of them pose some kind of danger toward her and in her life. And the book is about her basically trying to save herself and get out of this quagmire she's found herself in with these men. So I'm having a lot of fun with that. It's my first time working suspense. I've been a huge fan of mystery novels for years. They say Agatha Christie wrote, I don't know, 65 books. I probably read about 60 of them. I had piles and piles of the books when I was young. I also currently read a lot of. Siri is talking to me. She said she didn't hear what I said. Could I try again? Can you hear Siri talking to me?
I heard something. I didn't know it was Siri.
I mean, I didn't. She said, I didn't get that. Can you say that again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now well, some people may not realize that you were hearing impaired.
Yeah.
I knew that you were, but
I was hearing impaired. I did have a cochlear implant.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started writing books, I was not able to use the telephone except through what we call the relay service. where you had to dial an operator and the operator would dial the other person. I'm able to use the phone naturally now since I've had my cochlear implant. It really is a miracle worker because I've gone from, having maybe 20% hearing to having a 20% hearing loss, to having maybe 80 or 90% hearing. So, and I'll show some of that in the book, how much something like this can change your life. And also I'm kind of showing how people can and tend to take advantage of you if they think that you are handicapped or at a disadvantage. And so she deals with some of that until she gets her cochlear implant. But the biggest part of the book will be about how the men in her life betray her and how she has to, find herself to get out from these dangerous situations that she gets herself into. I don't want to talk too much about it. It is suspense. There are a lot of things I'm wanting to say, but I'm holding back.
When do
Do you have a title yet?
Excuse me?
Well, I was just asking, when do you expect this story to
Come out.
hit the shelves?
And I was asking about the title, if you had a working title or actual title.
The title now is You Never Know, but that could change. That's a tentative title, You Never Know.
Okay.
And it's slated for publication in early 2023. So
Okay.
that one will probably actually come out before the nonfiction.
So you're just going to hit 2023 strong, 2 books in 1 year.
I'll be busy in 2023 if it works out that way. It could change, but yes, You Never Know in early 2023, and then stepping out toward the end of 2023.
Wonderful. So what made you decide it's time to get back into writing?
I decided to get back into writing, and I wrote a proposal for one of the books, and it was taking so long to go through. I had a lot of interest, but it was taking a while to get a definite offer. So I started writing the other book. I said, okay, maybe that won't go through. It's been a while since I've written anything. So I started the other book. And of course, once I started the other book and got deep into it, something came through for the first book. Well, by that time I was thrilled, but by that time I was really into the novel and didn't want to stop it. I was getting a lot of good reviews from people who were reading it. So I finished it and then pretty quickly got an offer for that one.
Nice.
Fiction being my stronger suit, that probably shouldn't be that surprising since most of my work has been fiction. So now, sort of it's kind of a be careful what you ask for kind of situation, because
Right.
I certainly did get it. I'm not complaining though. I'm just going to do the work, get out there and get it done.
So who's your publisher for the fiction book?
HarperCollins is the
Oh,
publisher.
okay.
They were my first publisher. Interestingly, they published Sisters and Lovers, Big
Okay.
Girls Don't Cry, and I believe A Long Way From Home. So they were my first publisher. So I'm sort of coming back full circle to my original publisher. The publisher for Stepping Out is Random House, an
Okay.
imprint of Random House.
Okay.
That does fashion. That does.
Different genres, so you're able to do that. It's because they're 2 different genres.
Yes, one is nonfiction and one is
Right.
fiction. 2 different publishers.
Yeah, HarperCollins is a great supporter of the show. We have several of their authors on
I think I
regular
heard you
basis.
talking about HarperCollins with the previous author.
Yeah, and they are also sponsors of the festival. So they've been very supportive. And yeah, well, the books that they send us advanced reading copies, sometimes published books. So when your book is ready to come out, they'll probably send us one. And then we give them away on the show based on a trivia question that's related to the book. So, people, it lets people know about the books coming out. If it motivates them to go research a little bit to win a copy of the book. So we do that. But that's great that, when I contact
be sure to look out for it. You never know. The title might change, but
you're right. But they normally give us like
what it is. We're like, oh, that's Connie's book.
Right. Yeah, they normally let us know 3 or 4 months in advance about what's coming.
Oh, I will. I sure will.
Mhm.
I'll be happy to do that. And I'm sure I'll publish something on my website,
Okay.
conniebriscoe.com, and also on my Instagram page. I've just started building that up because I know these days, unlike when I wrote 10, 15 years ago, social media is such a big part of getting the word out.
Right.
So I'm trying to step up my game with my Instagram page. So if you go to that, the name of that is Connie Briscoe Author.
Okay.
Okay.
My name had already been taken.
Oh boy, yeah, that's
Thinking.
yeah. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. Um, is this a standalone book or do you have a 2-book?
This is a standalone.
This is
We'll see
standalone.
how I do with suspense, and then maybe there'll be offers for others.
Okay.
I'm really hopeful though. It's exciting I love trying something new and something different, and this is definitely new and different. So I'm having a lot of fun with it. Doing
Okay.
the research and coming up with the little, red herrings and the little details about the crime and so the research that you have to do.
Well, you definitely didn't let the fact that you were hearing impaired or are hearing impaired stop you from pursuing your writing career. So what advice would you give people who may be hesitant to put themselves out there? They may not want to deal with the rejection or potential rejection, which happens to all of us, even without being here. So, that's just challenging. But what worked for you in terms of just your confidence with putting your work out there and getting it published?
Good question.
I think for me, probably the best thing I did in terms of building up my confidence was to take a fiction writing class. To teach, and also my work as an editor also helped to build confidence. Now, I know not everyone can get a job as an editor, but you can certainly take a course or two, and preferably a fiction writing course, and a course that will allow you to write and share your stories or your chapters with the other students, and allow them to criticize your writing. The criticism is not bad. Yes, it hurts, but it helps to make you a better writer because none of us are born writers. They don't teach us how to write in school in the normal curriculum in class. So when you write and you get criticism from your fellow students, this is helping you to grow as a writer. You shouldn't be afraid of that. You also shouldn't be too concerned about rejection. It's a part of, if you can't deal with rejection, then you probably shouldn't enter this field. It's a part of it. It just is.
Were
And you
you
learn to weed out
right?
the rejection that is just pure criticism for the sake of it and doesn't really help you to grow or anything like that. But sometimes a rejection, if you listen to the words behind it, can help you as an author.
Were you already a published author when you decided to take a fiction writing class?
No, I was not. I had
Oh.
never written a thing my entire life before I took the fiction writing class.
I asked,
When I started as an editor, I had never written anything. So, you're not, as I said, you're not born a writer. You really have to teach yourself the craft of
Right.
writing, and you have to find out what works best for you in terms of doing that. For some of us, and the other good way to gain confidence is just to write. The more you write, the better you will become at it.
absolutely.
Let people read it whose judgment you trust. But you have to make an effort. It's not going to just fall in your lap. You have to make the effort to get better at writing, either through classes, through writing books, essays, diaries yourself. The more you write, the better you will become at it. But no, when I took my, I was probably working in research. I was an analyst when I was taking these writing classes.
Oh, okay.
We want to ask so many more questions, but we've come to the end.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you for having me. And hopefully I'll see you again when one of my other books comes out.
We will definitely have you back on for at least one of your books in next year, because they both come out next year. So we'll definitely have you back once they come out, so people can see the covers and go buy them.
Okay, I may be able to share some of the covers with you and some things about it even before then, but we'll keep in touch.
Okay, well, Connie, it was great having you on, and much success with your 2 upcoming releases.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
You hope to
Take
see you
care.
when I go to Columbia. Have a great one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Okay, so we're bringing on our next guest. And before we do, Rhonda, can you tell me who won?
I don't know because there were different answers. What was the answer? I mean,
The answer is West Room Aesthetics.
Okay, let me see. There was somebody who typed that.
West Room Aesthetics is the name of the business, the boutique skin health clinic in London.
That was Stephanie Burnham. Again.
Stephanie Burnham again. Okay. Congratulations, Stephanie. We already have your address, so you don't need to send it. But this is a very nice book. It's very nice, so you can enjoy that. Okay. Yeah, it's hefty. Okay, our next guest is Rose M Stefan. She is has a PhD. I'm not sure what her PhD is in, but she also has several novels. So her latest one is called 5 Stethoscopes, 6 Secrets. But she has several. I think the last time I spoke with her, she had 6 or 7. I don't know how many she has now, but she's been doing a lot of writing. And so we're going to find out more about her novels, her background, her education. She has a program she started called Flirt. So she's got a lot going on. We're going to find out what Rose Siffin is up to. So thank you for being a guest on Black Authors Matter TV.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
We are great. And how are you?
Well, I'm doing fine, excited about this. And you know, it's been several years since I saw you, but I met you at the National Writers Association or something back in Texas years ago. I think it was like your third year.
Right, National Black Book Festival. I think when I saw you, we were at the hotel. We were at a hotel. Okay, and we haven't been there in 10 years. We left the hotels. Well, we left more than 10 years ago, but we had 2 years with COVID, so we weren't in person. So, everything was virtual. But you have, how many novels do you have, Rose?
I have 6.
6, okay. I wasn't sure the exact number. And your latest novel is called 5 Stethoscopes, 6 Secrets. So
I like the title.
Yes.
Oh, okay. You have now. What is your book about? I'm sure it's about something having to do with the medical field.
Well, actually, it is a novel, and it's more about medical students and what they're going through and the secrets that each one of them might have. And so it's 5 stethoscopes because 5, they all become doctors. There are 5 young ladies and they all become medical doctors. So it's 5 stethoscopes, but their mentor has a secret also. So that's why it's called 5 stethoscopes, 6 secrets.
Okay. So now, do you tell the story in such a way where each character kind of presents their own story and then you bring it all together?
Each chapter is dedicated to one of the characters.
Okay.
And there are 6 characters, of course. And I cover their years in medical school and then 10 years later. So I do wrap everything up for each character, but maybe there could be a sequel in the making.
Okay.
That's a technique that that authors use. I'm considering using it for what I'm doing, but I haven't made a decision. When I read a book that has the chapter, it's a chapter. It'll normally be a chapter number and then the name of the character that is focused on.
Yes.
Kind of helps the story in terms of keeping track of who's doing what or what's happening to whomever. Because sometimes if you have quite a few characters, and sometimes some books have too many characters, this is my opinion, but anyway, when you read it, it's hard to keep track of what's going on and who did what, and having those chapters focus on a particular character helps with some of that. And it probably helps with the writing too. Do you do that technique in all of your novels, or is that something you're doing with this novel?
Well, since this is my 6th one, the first one was just basically chapter by chapter. And even though I may have dwelt on a character's perspective, I was the narrator. So it was an omnipresent narrator. And so I think that the story came together very well, but there were several characters over several years. But I tried to minimize the number of characters per chapter for the first novel. And then the second novel, there were basically 4 principal characters. I told one person's story at the beginning, and then at the end was all 4 of their stories together. And then in the middle was the third one. So I didn't focus on it by name of the character chapter, just chapter by chapter, but I focused on characters that were very few in each chapter.
Okay.
So what you talked about your what you wanted to tell us about your education and your research and your program that you started called Flirt. So, and I'm sure since you had it in caps, Flirt is an acronym for something.
Right.
So,
Yes.
so tell us about your education. I know you have a PhD. What is your PhD in?
Biochemistry, Gwen, biochemistry.
Oh,
Wow.
And
So-
that's why I wrote the novel,
Yeah.
because I teach so many pre-med students. And so it just made, well, I shouldn't say it made sense, but it was as if, well, it was like, okay, I've been teaching students who became medical doctors. So why not make a medical school, make fictitious students, and then tell their story? Because when I say that is to say students have graduated from my program and gone on to medical school.
Are you
And so
still?
I kind of took that. What?
Are you still teaching medical school?
No, I don't teach in a medical school. I teach in a university, but I teach pre-med students.
I see.
so have you practiced medicine or have you?
No, my PhD is in biochemistry.
In biochemistry. So did you do research? You do research.
Well, I did my PhD, I did a postdoc. I've been teaching, but I do research on the side with the students. So it's a mentor-led research, but I get the students to do the research.
Okay.
I guess and I do want to get into the book and into your program, but I do want to ask, because we hear a lot of people saying that they want to see more people in the medical field who are people of color. And so you'll have these students who go, who take this class and they walk in and then they see you. Is that usually a surprise, maybe a relief or excitement that they get to see a woman of color who is actually going to be teaching them in a field that we don't expect to see a lot of people of color in?
Well, okay, I teach at a small HBCU.
Okay, so they're used to seeing you.
Well, but now it is a diverse school. We have one of my better students, he's a nurse now. He was from Bosnia. He was blonde and blue-eyed. I mean, I've taught students from Europe, I've taught students from South America, from Puerto Rico, who we, as Malcolm X would say, we see them as white. So even though I teach at an HBCU, it is diverse in terms of both faculty and students. One of my students is Puerto Rican, and even though she's Puerto Rican, she would look what we would call white. Right.
Okay.
Yeah, now which HBCU are you teaching?
Okay, now I'm in Florida. I'm in South Florida, and Florida Memorial University is the only HBCU in South Florida. Now we have 4 in the state of Florida.
Right,
FAMU, everybody knows about.
Right.
Bethune-Cookman, everybody knows about.
right.
Edward Waters, maybe not so much, and Florida Memorial. And
Okay.
Florida Memorial is kind of famous for 2 reasons, for many reasons, but one of them is that the young man who flew around the world solo graduated from Florida Memorial. Barrington Irving, he was in the aviation's program, and he took classes in my division. And he is the youngest African-American to do that, and he graduated from Florida Memorial.
Oh, okay. And my niece went to, well, one of my nieces went to FAMU, and one of my other nieces went to Bethune-Cookman. So they're sisters, but they went to different schools in Florida, and they're not from Florida. So they're from North Carolina. So, but
Well, and so Bethune-Cookman is north,
Daytona Beach.
northeast, and FAMU is kind of north central.
Tallahassee.
In Tallahassee, in the capital, yes.
Yeah, we went to graduations. So,
Well, we've had many competitions with FAMU and Bethune-Cookman, and we usually in science we usually beat them.
oh,
My daughter
okay.
is accepted to Bethune-Cookman, but she wound up going to Clark Atlanta.
So what made you choose the field of biochemistry? Did you have a early yearning and desire and interest in chemistry?
Well, when I was 9 years old, I must have read an article in a magazine, I'm not sure. But I told my father that I was going to be a biochemist. And I was 9. And I did not change my mind. I have never changed my mind.
Wow.
And at 9, but I thought that I'll be curing cancer and doing all these great discoveries. But I realized that it would be great to give back to the minority community, to bring them up, because when we produce a Black medical doctor or a Black PhD,
Yes.
we are diversifying very closed, narrow fields. So
Right.
every Black doctor that we create, we are diversifying that field that a lot of people thought that we couldn't do. And so my calling to teach came when I was working on my master's in organic chemistry. So I've always wanted to be a biochemist. I never wavered from that, never wanted to be a doctor, medical doctor, never wanted to do that, ever.
Okay.
And I'm sure your dad must have been like, what does this 9-year-old know about biochemistry?
Well, he probably did say that. I don't remember, but I just remember telling him. But being 9 years old, I have been working since I was 4 years old. I started picking cotton in Mississippi when I was 4 years old. So he probably thought, well, that'll get you out of the field for sure. And I think that is what we need to understand, is that a lot of people went on to, improve their educational background because they wanted to get out of a situation that was economically terrible. My father and my mother were sharecroppers before I was born. And I picked cotton and chopped cotton up until I was in my teens. And if you take away my any degree that I have, I don't know how to do anything except pick cotton and chop cotton. I started science at 19. And after that, before that, in fact, that summer of my being, I think 18 and 19, I chopped cotton during the summer. And then when I was 20, I did my first internship. I couldn't afford to go to summer school because we didn't have any money. And so I chopped cotton that summer that I was 19. And the next summer, I did my first internship in Georgia at USDA.
Goodness, so you have led quite a life. You know what it means to work.
What?
I say, you know what it means to work. You've led quite a life.
Well, I think that might be important for people who want to advance in some socioeconomic manner. If you don't know the value of a dollar, and I know the value of a dollar, then why would you want to work for it? You know, I have students who they have shoes that I can't even afford to buy now. So if you have shoes that cost this much money, why does it matter if you don't pass a class? Because you've already reached an economic pinnacle that a lot of people are striving for. And certainly at that age, when I was that age, I was striving for that. I never thought that I'm just going to go and live off my parents. I knew that I had to improve my situation.
Absolutely. So tell us about your foundation, Flirt. Because we can talk about this all night. I really want to get to Flirt.
Well, Flirt is a program that I started on my own with an idea that I presented to my at the time, my administrative assistant. What I wanted to do was bring back former students who were graduates in the professional field in whatever arena, as long as they were in the major of science or pre-med or engineering. And so I just started sending out invites to get them to come back. And the first one to come back I think we're in our 9th year of Flirt. I brought a young lady back who got a PhD at Florida State, and she was a keynote speaker. And then I started having other graduates become every year it's a graduate of Florida Memorial who's a keynote speaker. This past Flirt, which was in February, almost a month ago, was a young man who was in his 4th year of medical school. He graduated from Florida Memorial. The year before that, a young lady she's a nurse practitioner, and she graduated from Florida Memorial. She's got a PhD. Another year, the young lady, she's going to graduate next year from Florida State. She was a keynote speaker. Next year, I have 2 medical doctors, also graduates of Florida Memorial University, who are going to be the keynote speakers. So as I said, whenever we create a minority in the area of STEM, we are diversifying. Yes. And that's my goal, is to diversify. Whatever medical doctor or PhD or master's degree, or even someone who is simply teaching in the field and getting other students excited about science, that becomes a way to diversify a very narrow and, well, almost monochromatic endeavor.
Nice.
So did you ever struggle, for those of us who aren't, where science is not our strength, okay? And that's me, that was my worst area. So did you ever struggle with the sciences, or because of your determination and your just focus and knowing what you wanted to do, you just took the bull by the horns and it was easy for you?
Well, I don't want to use the word easy because that sounds self-aggrandizement, but I did love math. I minored in math when I majored in chemistry. And so because I liked math, I did physics, and I did advanced physics, and I took biology classes, zoo and botany, and I got A's in those. I just loved science. But also I think it was because I knew that I was not going to change my mind. And I thank God for the fact that I did like the science area, because so many students say they want to be something and they don't have the academic acumen to do that. I wanted to be a biochemist. And so I just love science. I love reading. And I think if you love reading and you know and you have an idea of what you want to do, I think that you can have a fair amount of success. I'm not going to say that I'm successful. My bank account will prove that. But I achieved a goal that nobody was a role model for it. I said that I was going to be a biochemist, and I pursued that goal.
Yes, but nobody in your neighborhood, so to speak, was a biochemist. That's what.
Okay, so when I made that decision, Gwen, I was 9 years old. My father and my mother was a maid, and she picked cotton, chopped cotton. My father was a tractor driver for the people who pick cotton, chop cotton. My aunt didn't work, and her husband worked sometimes as a tractor driver. And so there was no one around. And so the other neighbors, they were in the field with me. So yes, there was no one around me to say, hey, I want you to be like me, because that would mean that I would be picking cotton.
I think that's what makes the story even more amazing, is that one, you chose a field that you didn't see around you, that you didn't know anybody who was in that field. So there was nobody who encouraged you to do it. And then two, you stayed with that goal all throughout, from the time you were 9 all the way up until the time that you graduated and started getting your degrees. I mean, and I guess for me, I would like to know, what is it? I know you said you enjoyed science and you enjoyed reading, but what was it that helped you to stick with that? I mean, because I'm sure that there were times, because there was nobody else around you to show you what was possible. Were there ever times where you said, well, maybe I should try something else, or maybe this isn't for me? Or did you maybe even go find people outside of your family to talk to get encouragement from? How did you stick with this goal?
I think, well, that's a good question. So nobody encouraged me. Nobody told me, don't do it. Nobody told me to do it. I think that once I make up my mind, I'm going to try to be as focused as I can be. And so nobody discouraged me in terms of my family. They didn't encourage me, but they didn't say, oh, don't go into that, you need to do something else. My mother, who did not have a formal education, she did not go to 6th grade. I remember that I was taking geometry in high school, and I brought home a C on my report card. Now, she doesn't understand geometry, but she knows what a C is. And so she said, you will not bring home another C. And no matter what excuse I gave her, oh, the teacher, oh, this, I don't care. You don't bring home another C. Because again, I could sit there and show her proof after proof. She wouldn't know what I'm talking about, but she did know the bottom line. A is good, C is bad. So we couldn't bring home grades that were non-reflective of her encouraging us to do better.
Absolutely.
That's great. You know, that's that story is repeated many, many times, but it doesn't get exposure. And by that, I mean, my father picked tobacco in North Carolina from the time he was a kid. But what motivated him was that he sharecropped. They sharecropped, his parents were sharecroppers. And the little white kids that, the people who owned the land, they weren't out there doing their work. They were 9 and 10, they're riding their bicycles or were waiting for the bus to go to school. And he just thought that was just ridiculous. And he was, so this was in the, let's see, my dad was, he passed away last year. He was born in 1932. So it would have been the 40s when he was in the fields. And he just thought that was not right. And his parents didn't have education at all. And they really weren't that encouraging, because, you know, back then it was better to be on the farm to help bring in the crops for the family. But he was the youngest, so that helped him because he had older siblings. But he was just bound in it. He was just determined. And he ended up getting a PhD, earned PhD too. It just, determination goes a long way. It's this really the strongest thing, because if you're determined, most of the time you're going to succeed. But if you're not determined, you can be easily deterred. You're going to have obstacles. But the fact that so many people from previous generations to the one now succeeded with very little or nothing, like, nothing, then that lets us know that we, the younger generation needs to know they can do whatever they want to do. I say this on the show a lot. Because I hear people saying that they can't, that telling these young people they can't do stuff. They can't, do higher math, or they can't, read English. They can, nobody believes in them that they can. And they're acting out what they believe, not giving them the motivation or expectation that they can do it. So they that's what's missing. But they need to hear more stories like yours, Dr. Rose. They need to hear that, because biochemistry is no joke. I thought I was going to be a nurse. It was a false thought, because I have no nursing, like my personality is the most negative of nursing. I can take care of my loved ones, but as far as strangers, but I wasn't good at science. I just wasn't. So I switched to business, which is what I should have been in, and excelled. But when I was in, chemistry, it was horrible for me. I could do physics because I was good at math. Math is related to business, but I just couldn't. Chemistry, anatomy and physiology kicked my rear end. Anyway, I just said, no, this is not for me. But you kept at it. So you had the acumen, you had the natural, you had the determination, and it was something you wanted to do. So
Exactly.
that was really great. And so, do you have a copy you showed us a copy of your book. Do you have any of your other books with you? Because I know I read one of them.
I have two. So
a long time ago. It's been a while ago.
Yeah, this is the third one.
Okay.
It's called Grooving on the Half Shell.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's a biography about a fictitious blues man named Carl Murray. It's a thin read.
Okay.
And it's chapter by chapter. This is my third novel. And in each chapter, there's a character who is either related to or knows the main character. And the reason that it's called Grooving on the Half Shell is, if you notice the cover, inside that shell are two pearls.
Okay.
Well, Carl Murray had two wives, but he had them at the same time. And it was sort of like a sister wife. They lived together. He was married to his first wife, and he met this other woman years later. And instead of just having an affair and moving on, as we know that men will do, not Black men, just men, he didn't move on. He fell in love with two women. And because he couldn't separate himself from his wife, nor could he separate himself from what essentially was his mistress, he lived with both of them, but not in a way that would be, let's just say, a menage a trois. He literally had two wives.
Oh, okay.
So that's why it's called Grooving on the Half Shell, because to do that, you would have to be grooving on the half shell.
Okay.
And then the second novel is Reflections.
Okay.
And it's about a young man, as you can see him, and the woman is looking in the mirror and she is seeing him. So they physically resemble each other, and they eventually marry. And people think that they're related, but so it's called Reflections. But he also, but the storyline is basically that he gets another young lady pregnant without knowing it, meaning that he was drunk out of his gourd, and the next morning he couldn't remember anything because he was drunk, and she remembered everything because she was sober. But because of her embarrassment at having given herself to this stranger, because she thought she was in love with him, and he doesn't know who she is, she leaves, disappears, goes away. 10 years later, he's at a conference, she's at a conference, at the same conference, and he sees a little boy who looks just like him. So that's another reason that it's called Reflections. He discovers that he has a 10-year-old son.
Interesting. But now, where can we find your books?
They're all on Amazon. They are on Kindle and in paperback. And I would love for someone to purchase them. I would love to talk about writing. I love to read. I love to write. I love to edit. So the whole craft is something that I enjoy. And a lot of people think that I want to be a writer instead of a scientist. I want to be a scientist who is a writer, or a writer who is a scientist.
Yes.
I don't want to split that. And
Okay.
so I get as much enjoyment teaching my students, trying to get them to love science, as I do writing.
I love it. I love it. I wish we could talk longer, but it's already 9:30. Well, 8:30. No, it's 9:30 for you.
It's
It's
9:30.
9:30 my time.
She's on the East Coast. Mhm.
Yeah,
So,
yes.
well, thank you so much for being a guest on Black Authors Matter TV. And for those here you are watching, go get a copy of one of Rose Stiffin's books. And
Well, no, Gwen, go get a copy of all 6 of them. You'll
Oh,
enjoy
okay,
it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Not
Get a
one,
copy of
not
all of
one,
those.
all of them.
All right. She told you what to do. So
Well, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And nice meeting you, Dr. Lawson. Nice meeting you.
It was very nice meeting you as well. I'd love to stay in touch. I think did I friend you on Instagram? Are you on Instagram?
I'm on Facebook for sure.
Okay, well, I'll find you on Facebook. We're gonna be friends from now
It
on.
sounds like a plan. Thank you. And Gwen, it's great seeing you too.
right, same here. Thank you. And keep writing.
Oh, yes, definitely. Okay, take care. Thank you guys so much.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Good night.
Have a
Okay,
great
bye-bye.
evening.
Good night.
Okay, so now we are ready for our final guest, and it is Georgia McDade. She's a doctor as well, but she's also with the Seattle African American Writers Alliance, and they recently celebrated their 30th anniversary. So it's a writers group that's been around for 30 years, and it's evolved. Sometimes they've had more members than others, and that's how organizations do. But they're still around, and she's been with them, I think, from day one, but she'll tell us when she comes on. I think from day one, but she'll tell us. Okay, Dr. McDade, you need to turn off whatever extra device you have that has the show on it. Turn the sound off. Turn your Facebook off that has the show on it. Turn the sound off. Turn your Facebook off. Turn your Facebook off.
Okay,
And
can we
then-
see your beautiful face?
And then come on Zoom. We have sound, but we don't have your picture yet. And then come on Zoom. We have sound, but we don't have your picture yet. And then come on
Okay,
Zoom.
it's the Facebook I
Yeah,
get.
turn off your Facebook, because it has a 6-second delay, which really wreaks havoc in terms of an echo. Really wreaks havoc in terms of an echo. Really wreaks havoc in terms of an echo. Sounds like you have 2 devices going.
She has it on repeat.
Yes.
There we go.
Okay.
Beautiful face now.
Uh,
Are you gonna
Okay.
turn your camera on?
Can you
I
turn your
hear
camera?
you.
Can you turn it-
Yes, I had Facebook on, and that's why you were hearing both of them.
Okay, well, are you gonna come on camera?
Yes, I guess.
You don't turn that camera on. Come on now, we need to see you.
There you go.
I was so involved in the conversation with Dr. Siffin, and I said, "Oh, I have to switch." And then I said, hello. She could.
I'm good to see
And
you.
I have a lot in common.
Oh, okay. Welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you so very much for reading about us and getting in touch with me. I
Yeah.
have many authors I can send to your program. So
Oh, that's
thank
so
you.
funny. It's still daylight where you are.
Yes. Sometime before the summer is over, it'll almost 11 and it'll still
Yeah.
be there. It still
used to-
fascinates me that
I used to live in Tacoma, Washington.
Oh,
and
okay.
also also lived in Belgium, and you're right, it would be 11 o'clock
Yes,
before it
yes.
got dark.
Really?
I taught at Tacoma Community College, so
Oh,
I
okay.
know Tacoma. Yes, yes, yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I was stationed at Fort Lewis for about 2.5 years, and my sorority chapter was up in Tacoma. So yeah, I was very familiar with Tacoma, and I love Seattle.
And you didn't come to Tacoma Community College?
I'm sorry. I already had my degree by then.
Okay, okay. Well, I was there a long time now. Could have still come. Yeah, she could have come, but it's,
Okay, so
I
tell,
love Seattle too.
tell us about the Seattle African American Writers Alliance.
Well, you said we celebrated our anniversary. We've been around since 1991.
Oh, wonderful.
And the founder is Randy Eddings. Randy is from California, and she moved to Seattle, never thinking she wouldn't find a group of African-American writers, but she was wrong. And she decided, well, I'll start a group. And so she did. And we've been in existence since then. And we just published our 6th anthology. And we've been really busy, you know, for Black writers. February is our busiest month. January is right after it. So some of us are still exhausted. But the pandemic has done great things for us, because the Saturday before everything was shut down was the first time we had a meeting via Zoom.
Mm.
So since then, of course, we've been going all over the world. And we have one author in the Netherlands. She's from
Nice.
Kenya, but she comes in and she teaches Swahili. And we just had people from all over be our guests. We have this program every second Sunday at 2:00. We call Writers Read. So now we can just have all kinds of guests, all kinds of members, and of course, all kinds of audience members. And that's great. It's really great. I love your title. We have one of our anthologies is called Voices That Matter. And like Dr. Siffin in her science, I am that way when it comes to the arts. More of us need to know more. More of us need to get our material out there. And we have great stories, just amazing stories.
Yes.
But too often we don't have enough people to, or anybody really, to encourage us to put the stories out there. So I like to think that the purpose of the African American Writers Alliance is to bring in any and everybody and help them see that they have stories, and then to put those stories on paper. Because I always say, as long as it's in your head, it's in your head. And
Get
we
out of your head and onto your
Yes.
To
computer.
the paper, onto the computer or
yes,
whatever.
yes, yes, yes. So we've
So,
been
what types of activities do you do? Do you have like writing classes, or is it more of a support type group?
both of them.
Okay.
This past Friday night, as a matter of fact, I did a writing workshop. My degrees are in English, so this is the English teacher coming out. But by the time I was 8, I was already writing stories and poems and just kept doing it. So this coming, let's see, I should have a calendar here. There's a symposium coming up for writers of color. And I don't know, 9 or 10 of us are participating. And some are playwriters, and some are poets, and some are storytellers. And we just do just about anything someone asks. If they want a writer, one of the fun activities we had one year was to be at a fair, and people would just come up and say, could you write me a poem on so-and-so? And there were 3 or 4 of us there who were writing poems on demand. It was really nice. People were so surprised, and we thought nothing of it, you know. And that was really improvisation. We never used that word. I don't know if we ever thought about the word, but it just never occurred to us that we could not do it. And so we did it, you know. But my goal is for us to have a publishing company, because too often we just can't get published. And I would love to talk to your guest who said she has published with what is it? Was it HarperCollins, I believe?
HarperCollins, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, because most of the time, if we can get in, we can stay in, but so often we just cannot get in. And most of us, quite a few of us have published books, but most of them are self-published. And I don't know how many stories I know of people losing lots of money because someone took their money, period.
Right.
If we could get a publishing company, I'd be very, very happy. But right now we're just working on getting our poems out there, our stories out there, and reading all over whenever. Yes.
Okay.
Well,
How long have you been with the group?
Since the beginning. It started
Oh,
in
okay.
1991 and I was there.
Oh,
I think I was at the first meeting, but Randy says I really came to the third meeting. But anyway, I was there that first year. Yes, I know that.
On the organization's website, and it's very robust. You have a lot of activities on here. Your events are listed here, all of your associated authors. So
Yes.
this is pretty robust. I mean, you may not have a publishing company yet, but that's
coming. It's coming.
well, first you all have done, you said you've done 6 anthologies.
Yes, yes.
So who did you publish your anthologies through?
They're all self-published.
Okay.
The first one, I always say that it was printed. Everybody turned in their material, and I found a place that would print it in, they call themselves a publisher, but now I know they were printers, not publishers. And the night before, it was going to be done in Tacoma, and I live in Seattle. So one of the other members came over to my house. And we worked on that book all night long. And luckily I have this big couch in my bedroom. So I guess it must have been about 6 o'clock. We went to sleep. I got up, got to Tacoma before I had to go to work, and gave this woman these books so we could have them for our first reading at Elliott Bay Book Company. And we didn't have the money to pay for them. So I put it on my charge card. And then we counted the number of pages in the book. And if you had, say, 5 pages, you paid this amount. But if you had 8 pages, you paid that amount. And it was a little more than $2,000. But before the bill came, I had all of my money. And that's how sincere everybody was in that group. We wanted the book, and that was the only way we could get it done. And they came through. And I feel that way now.
Where there's a will, there's a way. You did it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Never
Yeah.
occurs to me that
Right.
there's
And you're dealing with honorable people is important too,
that's
because
true. That
otherwise
is-
you can get stuck with a bill. That happened to me
Yes.
once, and it's not fun. Let me tell you, when somebody
It's not fun. Now I've been
No.
on that side too, but it's okay.
No.
It's okay. I take
It only
it-
happened once. It only has
That's it.
happened to you one time. Before you-
I'm- no comment. No
Right?
comment. No comment.
So it over the last 30 years, you all have had more than 200 members over the years. But
Yes, yes.
you currently, your working core group is about how many people?
Well, we have there's this little problem. Some members think that only a member is someone who has paid. And I think a member is someone who comes. So there's this divide.
I see.
But I think we must
I
have
see the
about
sense in both sides.
we must have about 30 people who have paid. Now, when it comes to working, that's another story. That group is smaller, but we are working. I know I am diligently to get more people involved because there are a lot of different talents, and the more talents we have and the more people who use those talents, the better the group is. So we're just getting better and better as far as I'm concerned. But we have a good core group, a good group of people who work and sometimes complain about how many hours they work. But when we have to get something done, as a matter of fact, one member said, I cajole people really hurt my feelings. I don't think I really do. It's just that we have to get things done. If I have to, have to get things done.
You have to have a deadline for whatever it is.
Yes.
Otherwise, nothing will
Yes.
happen. So
Exactly. Yes.
it's
Yes.
just
Are you
true.
cajoling people? Are you cajoling people?
I would never. Okay, intentionally. I would never intentionally. It's for their own good.
Oh my goodness. I know you were cajoling people. I can see it in your voice.
You can tell.
Yep.
So when you all did your other anthologies, well, how did you decide to do an anthology? And is it based on themes or just everybody contributes something to it? Because Rhonda just published an anthology, and I have to give her another hand clap for doing that. It just came out last month. And she put it all together and, got the writers and decided what the theme is. So how do you all do your anthologies?
Okay. All right. There are people who want a theme, but I have never asked for a theme, and I'll explain. The minute we say theme, we lose people. Whatever you say, there are people who say, oh, I don't know about that. I can't. So I say, turn in what you want to put in the anthology by such and such a date. And then we accept whatever people turn in. But I've told them, they don't believe me, at least some people don't believe me, that I'm out of the anthology business for a while after this one. Somebody else is going to do it. And she is determined to have a theme. And of course, I'll submit my pieces, but I'm gonna, because it's something about getting something published, and when a person can hold a book in his or her hands and here's mine, it's just something different. And after you do the first one, it's so much easier to do the second one. I did my first one, and I hadn't thought about doing a book, but in 1985, I went on a 6-month trip around the world to 33 countries.
Oh.
And when I came back, people just kept asking questions, which I didn't mind, but there were other things I wanted to talk about. So one Sunday I came home from church, sat down at the dining room table, made a list of the questions people asked, and answered all of those questions. And then I thought, okay, now I can talk about what I want to talk. And I was just really surprised that I had done that. And then after we did the first one for the group, I thought, but there were errors and I wanted to correct it. And this woman who had helped me proof the first one said, oh no, we don't do the same one again. Let's do another one. So she decided that she would do one, and the title of that one was Gifted Voices. And everybody got everything to her, and the two of us did the proofreading. And each time they got better. The first one had these 2 staples in it, and the next one had the wire spiral in it. And then by the time we got to the third one, it's supposed to be perfect bound, but it wasn't as good as it could have been. And then the fourth one was even better. Each time they've gotten better and better, and that's been really good too. One of them we got published. I didn't know when we got this person to do it that he was going to have it published in Singapore, and we needed it for our opening at Elliott Bay. And it landed in Canada rather than the US. And so he says, well, it's coming, but it wouldn't have been there in time for us to launch it on the date I wanted. So of course, I took the ferry to Canada to get these books. So
you're close to Canada where you are, it's close to Canada.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's probably 3 or 4 hour ride, because that time I did take the boat. I have flown, and it is easier to fly, but that time I took the boat. Yeah.
Okay. So how have you been, keeping an organization together for 30 years is no small feat. So how have you been able to keep that same thing going?
It seems there were always a few people, a handful of people. We met at my house for a long time. We met at my church for a while. And I got in the habit of just getting my computer and going to the library. And often I would sit there and I'd be the only one, but I'd be there. So when it was supposed to start, if there were people there, we would start. Sometimes it was 2, sometimes it was 3 or 4, but I never said, well, I'm just not gonna go today. I always went, and usually, sometimes I think they felt sorry for me, but usually somebody showed up and we just talked about it, you know. But now I have some people, I have no doubt they will go to the end with me to keep this organization going. And I feel really good about it. I like to think that, you know, 100 years from now, there'll still be an African-American Writers Alliance, you know, because we have a special something. This past weekend, one of the writers, just the guest, a featured guest, read a poem, and she told us when she tried to get it published, she was told, her book actually, not just a poem, they told her that it was stereotypical. You know, and well, we aren't surprised to hear that kind of thing, you know. And so we just have to say, okay, we'll publish it ourselves. And I thank God for the computer and all of these places that do make it so very, very easy for you to get just about anything published. But the English teacher, of course, doesn't want just anything. We want to make this.
Yes, it needs to be edited.
Yes,
It still needs to be edited. Somebody asked about that. Somebody asked about that? One of the questions, I thought it was about, oh, yeah, being a teacher of English. This is Norman Gordon. He's one of our regular viewers. He said, being a teacher of English, do you still use an editor/proofreader?
Oh, of course, of course. I am often that editor/proofreader. I love having someone else read my material. I know if I read your material, I would find an error more quickly than you. But if you read mine, you would find one. Because when we read our own material, most of the time, what we do is read what we thought we wrote.
Right.
Yeah. And it's really amazing to have somebody else read it. And did I say that? Yep, there it is. That's what I said.
We read what we intended to say.
You know, we as writers, no matter how good a writer you are,
yes. Oh, yeah.
Have to have your work edited.
I have certain habits that I have. For instance, I could be writing something and I will skip a word. In my mind, I know it's
yes.
but I will skip that word. So sometimes I need another set of eyes who's going to catch those things that my trained eyes or my tired eyes.
It makes sense. Or even if you read it out loud to yourself, very often you'll discover it. But most people I have discovered do not want to do that.
Right.
They just want to, oh, here it is. And you know.
Oh no. And that's why, you know, I have a serious pet peeve about unedited books.
Yeah, but there are I have a pile of books, and I want to go, and I'm a nonviolent person, but I want to beat the people who publish these books because they took people's money, you know. And one of my favorite stories is about a woman who had been an addict, and she got off drugs, and she wrote this book, and she wanted me to read it, and I read it, and I said, I'm so glad you because I think it was cathartic for her to write the book. And I said, but I have to tell you, it just had so many errors. Why didn't you let me look at it before you put? And she
was published. I thought it
was published. It was published, and I said, I just have to tell you, and I forgot all about it. And maybe 2-3 years later, I hadn't seen her in a long time. She came up to me, and she had a new book, and in the front, she had dedicated it to me. But somewhere she learned just how poorly it had been. And if she had had a publisher rather than a printer, that person would have helped her. And I just want to cry when I see some of them, because somebody just took somebody's money, and they, you know, I just think that's so awful. But
it's very awful.
Sometimes you can't tell people because they don't want to pay.
And they don't
And-
want to hear that it's not
Oh,
perfection.
That's what I was going to say
don't
too. A
wanna
lot of
hear
times
it.
they don't want, they think it's an affront to them.
Yeah, I
For
know.
you to tell them
Yes,
their book was
yes,
well written.
yes,
Right.
yes, yes, yes.
But, and it's
This is so
probably, it
nice.
could be a good story in there.
Oh,
know,
it is.
But if it's just riddled with mistakes, you can't, I mean, you just, it's just,
I have this story. I like to begin workshops by saying, you're at this really swanky party and everything is great and you dress great and all. And they have all of this food and they have this wine that you just don't buy every day or even every year. And you are all set to drink the wine. And just as you pick it, you notice there's a fly in the wine. Now,
yeah.
regardless of how good or expensive that wine is, nobody I know will drink it, even after they
Right.
take the fly out.
That's
And
a good
the way I think
analogy.
some of the books, they have
Yeah.
great stories, but there's this, and people always get that. They may not apply it to their writing, but they get it. Yeah.
Yeah, and they don't
is good.
hire
That would make
professionals.
me cry. If there were wine, if there
But
were
you wouldn't drink it.
wine.
But you wouldn't drink it.
No, she wouldn't.
Oh,
So we only have a
Right.
couple of minutes left,
yes.
and we only have a couple of minutes left. So I wanted to ask a final question of you. Since you've been part of this Writers Alliance for so many years from the beginning, for those people who are thinking about starting a Writers Alliance in their areas, or who have one they've already established and may be not working as well, they're not getting the participation that they want, or it's not reaching the goals that they want, what advice would you give them about a writers group and maintaining a group over a long period of time? What's the secret sauce?
That was an ad in the newspaper, And then people got together, and I guess a few of them knew each other. Most of us did not know each other, but all of us wrote. That was what we had in common. And regardless of what writers say, we really want somebody to hear what we wrote. And so just having a group, and Randy said at that first meeting, everybody has to bring something to read. And being the overachiever that I am, there was no way I was going and not have something to read. And my guess is other people felt the same way. So some of the stories I came up with that year, I didn't publish until 10 or 11 years later, but I wrote them during that period because I always wanted to have something. And the poems, almost the same way, because one time we would take a vote to see, we would take the number of minutes we had to read and divide it by the number of people who were reading. And I had read a story in a meeting, and that story was 21 minutes, but we had only 10, and they actually voted to let me have 21 minutes to read that story. And I felt guilty because I had 21 minutes and the rest of them had only 10. So I started writing poems. And now I have 4 books of poetry and one with the layout guy. And I have only 1 book of short stories and essays. And just this week, one of my swimming friends who read the prose first and loved it, finished one of the poetry books, and she said, stories, I want stories. The poetry is too hard for me. But English isn't her first language. So I said, okay, I'm getting back to more stories just for you.
Okay.
Oh, and I wanted to show you that this is the title, Outside the Cave. And the problem, it is a problem. I have 6 books with the same cover. Outside the Cave 1, Outside the Cave 2, Outside the Cave 3, 4. And the first 2
I'm gonna need to get out that cave, okay?
the first 2 have pictures in them. So they're more expensive than 1 and 2 without the pictures.
Okay.
But they convinced me. So this last one is the unleveled field as opposed to
We're
outside.
out of the cave now.
Yeah.
Now, I know we're at the end, but Loretta Dalton, she's another one of our normal audience members. She wants to know where you were born and raised.
Oh, Monroe, Louisiana.
Oh, see,
Yes,
Boy.
you said Louisiana. I said, look at this. Yes, and my parents were sharecroppers before I was born. My mother
Okay.
was a maid. I mean,
Okay.
it's just,
Okay.
it's
see,
just
that's
so
why I knew I
amazing.
loved you,
But I
because we
grew
have
up
that Louisiana kindred spirit going on.
Is that it? They say it's a great place to be from, you know? And
Not
so-
at, but from.
from.
Oh,
There are a
that's
lot of
so
people
funny.
in Seattle from Louisiana, a lot of people.
Oh, really?
And we
That's
do all kinds of
interesting.
things.
That's a long way from
Yes.
home. That's
Many people were got out here because of the military,
Mhm.
and then
Oh,
others
okay.
came because Seattle schools desegregated. And at the time, Southern University was the largest Black, or they like to say predominantly Black, public education institution. So a number of people who were in education got their first Orleans. That's when Boeing was going 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they hired many people. That's not the way all of us got out here. I didn't, but that's the way many of us got out here. But and of course, we brought the family out. You know, we
Right.
helped the family. My
Right.
sister was out here. I came, and at one time, 7 of the 8 of us were living here in Seattle.
All right. Well, it's a beautiful city, so I can see why you stayed.
Yeah.
I've heard it is.
Yeah.
Well, we're at the end of our time. Georgia, thank you for being a guest. Thank you for sharing about the Seattle African American Writers Alliance. And if you are people who are watching, if you all want to know more about them, you all have a Facebook page, I believe.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we have a website. You have the website there in front of you.
Yeah,
But,
put it on the Facebook.
Yeah,
page.
just
Chat.
aawa-seattle.org. And by
Okay.
all means, send us questions. We will gladly respond. Thank you so much, so very
Thank
much for
you.
inviting me.
It was a pleasure and very entertaining as well. So thank you so much for being a guest on Black Authors Matter TV,
Oh,
and
thank
continued success with
you.
the Alliance. That's wonderful. 30 years, your 30th anniversue.
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night.
evening.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, that's the end of our show. But before we go, I do want to, do I have it here? I wanted to, remind you to vote for the Black Authors Matter TV Awards. If you go to blackauthors.mattertv.com, you can vote for your favorite interviews in 16 categories. Favorite interviews for the past year, from March 9th, 2021 to March 1st of 2022. And so the votes have been pouring in all day long at a much higher rate than they were on starting day last year. So that's amazing. So we'll have a lot. I can't wait to see who the finalists are going to be. And we'll be announcing that on April 5th. So next week we have an amazing lineup again. We have Terry Major Kincaid as one of the authors. We have a Dr. Dana R. Jones Meggett. And for the second half of the show, we have our book club Kickback with best-selling award-winning author Rashonda Tate Billingsley and her new book, Miss Pearlie's Girls. So if you haven't purchased the book yet, if you want to participate in the discussion, go ahead and download it or purchase the book. It's not real hefty. And we, as usual, for our book club Kickback, we give away 3 autographed copies of the book. And in order to win the book, you will have had to have read the story, because the trivia questions come from the plot, the storyline, not like when we give away books on the show during the week, and you can just kind of Google it. These questions, you would have had to read the book to know the answers. So
I think there's a lot of people answering those questions because people have been so excited about reading Miss Pearlie's Girls. They get excited every time we mention it. So I know that there are going to be a lot of people competing for those prizes.
yeah, and we're going to have about 10 book clubs joining us next week for the book club kickback. So if you're a book club and you still want to participate, and you got the email that we sent out, because we sent an email out to our database of book clubs, please send your form in by tomorrow so we can know who's going to be participating, and you'll get a confirmation email back. So that's it for this week, and I'm Gwen Richardson signing off.
And I'm Dr. Rhonda Lawson. You guys have a wonderful evening and a great week.
We'll see you next Tuesday on Black Authors Matter TV. Good night.
Bye.